The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glittered like the hollowed-out core of a dying star, high and vaulted, dripping in gold filament and the indifferent opulence of empires too old to remember their first conquest. Light filtered through synthetic sun panes overhead, casting soft rainbows across polished obsidian floors. At the center stood the dais, ringed by sentient species older than Earth's continents. And into that circle of power walked a woman in cowboy boots. Major Evelyn Drake, Earth representative, mid-40s, hair up in a loose bun like she had something on the stove. Her coat was a soft brown, her voice softer. Her gait held no urgency, just a quiet rhythm, like she was humming something in her head, maybe a hymn, maybe a countdown. She smiled at the delegation. It was not a politician's smile. It was the sort your grandmother gave just before swatting your hand away from the peach pie. "Thank you kindly for having me," she said, voice as sweet as bourbon in a warm teacup. "Sorry I'm late. I was bekined." Laughter tickled the council chamber. Nervous, mostly, from the more naive species. The Karnix delegation did not smile. High King Zorthanare, towering and cold-eyed, leaned forward on one of his 4 massive elbows. A bioluminescent glow pulsed across his plated skin like a venomous tide. He surveyed Evelyn the way a man might examine a cracked blade. Interesting, but no longer useful. "Earth continues to disobey," he said through his translator. Voice like gravel dragged over metal. "You deny our mandates. You hide your young. You," his mandibles clicked, "refuse sterilization protocols. So we have voted." A holoscreen bloomed above him, glowing red with the word, "Extinction, female population only." It floated there like a sentence already carried out. Evelyn looked at it, then at him. Then she sat down slowly on the provided chair, an ergonomic horror clearly built for someone with 3 spines and no hips. She smoothed her coat and folded her hands like she was settling in for a church sermon. "Well," she said softly, "that's real brave of y'all." General Galactic, seated near the edge, flinched. He was old now, grayed at the edges, spines dulled from battle. He had fought on Earth during the First War and made it back with 2 working hearts and 1 working hand. He never spoke of what he saw on the Eastern Front. But his staff noticed he never raised his voice anymore. And he never laughed. Zorthanare's glow pulsed with irritation. "This is no bravado. This is inevitability. Your females produce the population. Removing them ensures compliance within 2 generations." "That's your mistake, darling," Evelyn said, looking straight at him. "You think Earth women are the fruit, but we're the root." A pause. She tilted her head, voice warming. "Tell me, y'all ever had peach cobbler?" Silence. "I bake one for my platoon every year. Ain't nothing like it. But you know what happens if you pluck the peaches and leave the tree? She just grows and back next season. Stronger, sweeter, might even come up wild in your fields. That's nature's sugar." She smiled. It was smaller now, sadder. "I understand," she added gently. "You think this'll be clean, like pruning a garden. But Earth's women? We don't go quiet. We don't go kind. We go deep." Zorthanare scoffed. "Your threats are cloaked in metaphor. Typical. Inefficient. Humans speak in riddles and hide weakness in poetry." "It ain't poetry," she said, leaning back. "It's a parable. From folks who've been underestimated before." Galactic shifted again. His breathing was shallow. The memories scratched at his mind like splinters under the skin. Evelyn's eyes caught his for just a second, and she nodded, barely. Zorthanare waved a clawed hand. "The extermination fleet launches within 40 hours. Be thankful we permitted your presence here as courtesy. You may now leave." "Course," Evelyn said, standing. She paused, smoothing her sleeve. "But I'd like to leave y'all with a little story if I may." Without waiting for approval, she began. "There was a fella once, nice fella. Raised horses. Loved peace. Then someone came along and shot his dog. He tried to forgive. He really did. But see, that dog wasn't just a pet. That dog had saved his daughter from a rattlesnake once. That dog was family. And when they took it, She paused, eyes flicking over the aliens, voice softening. He burned 10 towns to the ground. Real quiet-like. Started with the stables, then the silos, then the schools. No loud speeches. Just action. They asked him later why he did it. You know what he said? Zorthan Array narrowed his eyes. I was being polite for as long as I could. She smiled. And Earth's been real polite, Your Majesty. Evelyn turned, boots echoing on the obsidian floor as she made her way toward the exit. She paused at the great arch of the chamber door. Her voice, when it came again, was almost an afterthought. Oh, and if y'all see fit to start exterminating the womenfolk, just remember one thing. She turned halfway. Her gaze flicked across the silent chamber like a blade skimming water. You ain't met our mothers yet. The door hissed shut behind her. In the long silence that followed, the council began murmuring. Some laughed it off, calling her eccentric. Others called for censure. But General Galactic did not speak. He stared at the floor, remembering fields of fire and lullabies sung under mortar rain. He rose slowly and made his way out unnoticed. Outside the chamber, Evelyn stood at the edge of the Starbridge walkway, watching the twin suns burn low in the RH Doak sky. Her face was unreadable. From her coat pocket, she pulled a weathered photo, creased and worn. A group of women, some in uniform, some in aprons, some in hijabs, some bald from chemo, all smiling. She tucked it back in. Behind her, a young alien clerk approached nervously. Madam Drake, may I ask something? She glanced at him. You were smiling in there, he whispered. Even when they voted. Why? She looked up at the stars, voice soft as wind through wheat. 'Cause people like him don't believe storms start in silence. She turned and walked away. Elsewhere, in orbit around a quiet moon, a transmission flared to life. Not loud, just a single ping. Across 100 sectors, human operatives looked up from their books, their chessboards, their tea. A phrase appeared on encrypted displays. Peach tree's been plucked. And a timer began. The Karnak's execution fleet entered Sol system with the indifference of executioners arriving early to a hanging. 52 warships. Armor like black beetles. Hulls lacquered with the names of conquered worlds in 1,000 languages. They glided past Neptune like silent sharks, unhurried, sure of their kill. Earth hung before them like a blue candle. Aboard the flagship Righteous Dominion, Captain Rezix lounged in a throne of woven bone and synthetic nerve fiber. His face, a cascade of vertical eyes and plated brows, remained still as the mission brief played overhead, images of Earth women at play, at work, at war. He scoffed at the footage of a human girl in a yellow sundress helping an elder into a vehicle. Soft, sentimental, easily broken, he muttered, clicking his mandibles. An aide beside him adjusted a data slate. They still celebrate Mother's Day. The crew chuckled. Rezix raised a hand and stood. Transmit the warning. I want Earth's satellites to know we are here. A pulse fired across the system, a sweeping broadcast. It was not a message. It was a drumbeat. On Earth, in a facility buried beneath the ice crust of Iceland, Maya Lin laid a tray of chocolate chip cookies onto a rack and calmly pressed her thumb to the biometric scanner beside the oven. The scanner chirped. A nearby wall hissed open. Beyond it stood a launch chamber. The cookie scent mingled with the sterile air of readiness. Maya 36, logistics officer, unmarried, a baker on Tuesdays. She brushed flour from her hands and tapped the wall to initiate sequence 8. Screens blinked to life, each showing faces from across Earth. Grandmothers in wheelchairs, nurses, gym teachers, janitors. All women. All watching the same signal. Maya smiled at the closest screen. Looks like they've decided. In New Mexico, Evelyn Drake poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a coffee mug and set it beside a map marked in crimson XS. Her voice was quiet, slow, but every syllable landed like a loaded chamber. Time to preheat the oven. The alien fleet crossed into Earth orbit, like gods come to raise Eden. They expected retaliation, primitive perhaps, desperate at most. But Earth's orbital defenses remained quiet. Civilian networks continued broadcasting football games, baking tutorials, and old reruns of courtroom dramas. Rezix grew irritated. Have they no honor, he spat. No dignity of defiance. The crew prepared the descent pods, cylindrical, black, buzzing with heat. Thousands of Karnak's foot soldiers stood ready, breathing in unison, eyes shining. Within hours, the first pods landed in rural towns, mountain passes, fishing villages. They found clothes drying on lines, garden tools resting on fences, cookies cooling on window ledges. No soldiers, no barricades, no signs of panic, just silence. Rezix scowled. Begin sweeps. Across the globe, Karnak squads stormed empty streets. Some found children's drawings pinned to classroom doors. Others, handwritten notes. Went to visit grandma. Left dinner in the oven. Help yourself. No alarms. No missiles. No war cries. In one Texas farmhouse, a Karnak soldier entered kitchen and paused, eyes catching on a pair of ballet slippers left neatly beside the door. He stepped back out without touching anything. On a mountaintop monastery in Tibet, a team found a single candle burning in a stone chapel. A woman's scarf lay folded on the altar. Nothing else. Back aboard the righteous Dominion, Rezix felt the unease creep into his crew. Reports arrived fragmented. Units disconnected, transmission static, multiple non-hostile environments yielding no results. He turned to his communications officer. Where is the resistance? The officer hesitated. They haven't engaged. That means nothing, Rezix growled. Find them. In northern Alberta, a Karnak's patrol approached an old barn. The structure looked abandoned, but inside, the hay was warm, the blankets folded, coffee brewed, and on the wall, scratched in careful lettering, "Welcome. You're early. Sit a while." The alien commander shivered. On the moon's dark side, a listening post finally caught something. A coded whisper in old military cadence. Phase 1 complete. Bake time's up. Prepare the table. The Karnaks couldn't decipher it, but Earth could. In Washington, D.C., deep beneath the National Archives, Evelyn Drake stood before a sealed vault. With her right hand, she keyed in the activation phrase, "Peach tree's been plucked." Across the Earth's moon colonies, Mars outposts, and submerged Atlantic bunkers, humans began to move, not like a wave, but like the Earth itself had shifted. Quiet, measured, intentional. Maya Lin, still in Iceland, took off her apron. Beneath it was a tactical suit, stitched with old blood and new wiring. She opened a drawer, removed a simple photograph of a woman with a newborn, and kissed the corner. "I said I'd wait," she whispered. Rezix in orbit paced. "We should have seen them. The women. Where are they hiding?" Someone on his staff, a younger alien with trembling fingers, offered a shaky suggestion. "Sir, what if they're not hiding?" Rezix spun. "Explain. What if this is the resistance?" The thought clawed silence through the room. At that moment, a transmission pinged the flagship. Uncoded, unencrypted, just a voice. "Evelyn Drake. Howdy again. Y'all been walking around our house, peeking in the windows, stomping through our gardens. But funny thing, ain't no traps in the front yard." A pause. A chuckle. "You walked straight into the kitchen." The ship lights flickered, and we bake in silence. The crew panicked, scanning for location, origin, trace signatures. There were none. Evelyn's voice came again, lower now. "Y'all thought Earth was civilized. That we got soft 'cause we talk polite and plant flowers." Another pause. "But here's the thing. It ain't the pretty part of the tree that survives winter. It's the roots." At that moment, 50 Karnak ships across orbit went dark. No explosions. No alarms. Just gone. In the command deck of the righteous Dominion, screens flickered. A chorus of children began humming. It was "You Are My Sunshine," old Earth song, sung by women in war zones, in hospital rooms, on porches in towns no longer on maps. The melody crawled into the bones. Rezix turned, furious. Find the source. They didn't need to. A dozen small Earth vessels uncloaked at once. Their designs were nothing like the council had seen, made of black composite shaped like old teardrops, hulls engraved with names of women no longer living. One ship broadcast a single line. "My name was Ruth. You took my daughter." The teardrop ships opened fire, not loud, not blazing. Precision cuts. Surgical strikes. Like scalpels across arteries. Karnak's ships began imploding in silence. In the chaos, Rezix looked up at the largest Earth vessel, the one that hadn't fired, hadn't moved. And from its bridge, standing in full uniform, was Evelyn Drake. She was sipping coffee. When Rezix screamed through the comms, demanding surrender, Evelyn smiled. "We're done Bikini, sugar." Back on Earth, Maya Lin opened a book of poetry and quietly pressed a button labeled Serve. Across the galaxy, power stations on Karnix-controlled colonies blinked. Earth's sleeper agents, teachers, gardeners, mechanics, suddenly acted in unison. Satellites reoriented. Markets collapsed. And then silence. Every alien listening post across the outer rim recorded the same audio at the same moment. A voice, calm, southern firm. "We told y'all nicely." The outer rim burned in silence. Where once the Karnix fleet had cast a shadow over Earth's blue cradle, now a smear of debris hung in orbit, charred hulls, shattered antennae, the occasional glint of bone. It wasn't a battlefield. It was the aftermath of a decision made too late. Across council space, the transmission played on repeat. "You thought we were civilized." The voice, calm and smooth, rolled like smoke through every translator, every comm array, every backdoor frequency Earth had seeded across the stars. Evelyn Drake didn't shout. She just spoke, and entire civilizations forgot how to breathe. On a moon station near the desert world of Tralisay, a group of scientists huddled around a playback feed, staring at grainy footage of human ships that hadn't existed on any known registry. No logos. No heat signatures, just silence and surgical precision. One of the Tralson elders whispered, "I thought they were still inventing combustion engines." A younger assistant shook their head. That was the cover story. They let us believe that. All of it, the clumsiness, the chaos, the quaintness, was camouflage. Back on Earth, Evelyn stood inside an old greenhouse. The glass was cracked, the vines overgrown, but the tomatoes thrived. She knelt, gloved hands sinking into the soil. The war had begun, but the garden still needed tending. Her rifle leaned against a rain barrel nearby, silent witness. Beside her, Maya Lin crouched, planting a row of herbs. She wore her tactical uniform like a second skin, but her sleeves were rolled up. Dirt under the fingernails. "Calm. They're scared now," Maya murmured. Evelyn didn't look up. "Good. You think they'll strike back?" "They'll try." Maya glanced at her. "We ready." Evelyn smiled, small and warm. "Darlin', we ain't even turned the page yet." Across council space, panic festered like a wound. Planetary governments scrambled. Treaties dissolved in the blink of an eye. Minor empires that had sneered at Earth's backwater standing were now issuing public declarations of respect and requests for peaceful trade. In a security bunker deep beneath the Grand Council building, High King Zorthanare thrashed in rage, his bioluminescent veins flickering erratically. "You told me they were scattered," he bellowed at his advisors. "You said they were emotional, undisciplined." A trembling aide stammered, We believe they're cultural leaks. The humor, the infighting, the..." "Do you understand now?" another voice said, low and raspy. All eyes turned. General Galactic stood in the doorway. He hadn't been summoned. He wasn't in uniform. He looked like a relic dug up from a forgotten trench. "You watched them make fun of themselves," Galactic said, stepping forward. "You laughed when they fought each other, when they painted their faces and sang loud songs and burned their own cities. You thought it weakness." Zorthanare seethed. It was weakness. Galactic met his eyes without blinking. "No, it was rehearsal." The room fell silent. "They were practicing," he continued, "testing what they could survive, how far they could be pushed. And when it counted, they remembered everything." One of the junior diplomats shook their head. But the women. Why just them?" Galactic didn't smile, but his voice grew distant, like he was remembering something buried under blood. Because you never met the women of Earth. Not properly. You saw images, nurses, mothers, singers, school teachers. You thought them harmless. Decorations. Vessels for reproduction. He turned to Zorthan. You didn't see what I saw in Kansas. The king's mandibles clicked. What did you see? Galactic's eyes unfocused. They'd taken out our patrols. Silent kills. Precise. No blood trails, no sound. One night, we surrounded a farmhouse. Intelligence said the last human unit was inside. No soldiers. Just 2 women and a child. He swallowed. We breached at dawn. A long pause. There were no soldiers. The intel was right. Just women. One was baking bread. The aide dared to ask, what happened? Galactic's voice was the quietest thing in the room. Not a single Karnix walked out. Back on Earth, Maya and Evelyn stepped through the threshold of the underground command hub. The interior looked like a chapel. Vaulted ceilings. Vines growing through cracks. Along the walls, screens glowed with soft light. No sound, no alarms, just calm coordination. A voice spoke overhead, AI generated, stitched together from decades of Earth women's speech patterns. It sounded like an aunt who'd bring you pie and remind you where you came from. Status. Response assets in position. Ready to proceed. Maya exhaled. They still don't know what we're about to do they? Evelyn brushed a leaf from her shoulder. They never do. That's the whole point. She tapped a panel. A screen flipped. On it, the Galactic Council chamber mid-emergency session. Zorthan raged. Galactic sat still. Evelyn leaned in toward the camera. She didn't raise her voice. Hello again, Your Highness. Hope you don't mind us watching. You built your walls high, but we were always inside em. Zorthan's fury faltered. Evelyn continued. You judged Earth by what you saw on your broadcasts. The chaos. The jokes. The tears. You mistook noise for weakness. But I promise you. She paused, the smile fading. We were just talking, so you wouldn't hear the silence. The transmission cut. On Tralis A, scientists began evacuating their research stations. In Karnix territory, banks collapsed overnight. Entire sectors of the economy shuddered, not from war, but fear. Fear of a species that had smiled at them while counting down. Back in the council bunker, Galactic turned to his former enemy's transmission, and for the first time in years, he allowed a single sentence to rise. She was warning you. That was kindness. The room grew colder. In orbit, Earth's teardrop ships now held position. Silent. Watching. No further attacks. Not yet. Zorthan, breathing heavy, stared at the hologram of Earth and growled, What do they want? And somewhere, as if the universe heard him, a new signal arrived. No voice. Just an image. A photo. Old, faded Earth style. 7 women sitting on a porch, sun in their eyes, smiling. Their clothes were plain. Their hands were weathered. Their eyes were not. One line of text blinked beneath the image. We buried warriors in aprons. Zorthan stared. He didn't understand. Galactic did. He sat down slowly. They're not coming for conquest, he said. They're coming for memory. Zorthan turned. What does that mean? Galactic looked him in the eye, voice heavy with the ache of knowing. It means they're not going to erase us for power. They're going to erase us so the next galaxy doesn't make the same mistake. In the Earth command hub, Evelyn stepped into the garden one last time. The night air was cool. Maya handed her a cup of warm cider. They stood without speaking. Above them, stars blinked. Not random. Forming a signal. Other human ships emerging. Quietly. Purposefully. Dozens. Evelyn sipped, then looked toward the stars. I never wanted it to come to this. Maya nodded. But they asked. Twice. The screen behind them flickered again. This time a whisper. Not from Earth. A child's voice, alien, unsure, afraid. What happens now? Evelyn's answer was steady. Now, darlin', now we show 'em the roots. The black ship rose from Europa's shadow like a leviathan waking from ice. It made no sound. It cast no heat. It bore no flag. and yet its arrival silenced entire frequencies across 3 sectors. Where it passed, lesser ships powered down involuntarily, as if by ancestral instinct. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, even the feed monitors flickered at its presence. The translation systems shuddered. Its name was etched across its matte hull in ancient Earth script, burned deep, not painted. The matron, Zorthan R.A., stood before the council, no longer smug, only skeletal beneath his glowing skin. His voice came fractured. What kind of ship is that? No one answered. Most couldn't. Galactic simply lowered his head. She's not a warship. She's a message. And the galaxy would read her in blood. Back on Earth, Evelyn Drake stood at the helm of the matron. Her face was still. No emotion, no triumph. Just readiness. Her hair had been braided back. Her boots clicked softly against the deck floor, old leather, worn thin. Beside her, Maya Lin adjusted the ship's AI display, her movements practiced, hands steady. They were not warriors now. They were mothers preparing the will. On the screen, Zorthan R.A.'s face appeared, sweating, confused, unsure how to posture. This is an illegal act. Your world is not sanctioned to deploy weapons of this class. Evelyn didn't reply. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an old watch, mechanical, Earth-made, with a crack down the middle. She flipped the lid. A photo inside. A young girl, freckled, laughing. She set the watch on the console. Maya spoke instead. You threatened our children. You killed our sisters. And you called it lawful. Zorthan R.A. snarled. You made your point. Half my fleet is gone. We can negotiate terms of... Evelyn looked up. Sugar, she said, as if chiding a toddler. We ain't even started. Behind her, the command crew moved with precision. There were no shouts, no dramatic orders. They spoke like nurses in a delivery room. Calm, focused, lethal. The matron's core warmed. Not with heat, but gravity. Outside, space bent. Other Earth vessels, uncloaked in synchronous orbit. They bore no numbers, no call signs. Only names. Ethel, Maria, Nene, Alice, Lakshmi, Olga, Deborah, Zainab. Names the galaxy had never learned to fear. Until now. Back in the council, chaos festered. Ambassadors shouted. Alarms shrieked. Zorthan R.A. called for emergency override on all defense networks. But already, Earth's silent seeds, planted years prior, were blooming. Internal power stations failed. Command satellites blinked off. Automated defense AI responded only in lullabies. On the Tralase moonbase, a janitor named Joan simply walked into the central command, handed a cup of cocoa to the lead technician, and pressed a button she'd been carrying under her badge for 8 years. The entire moonbase powered down. Not from attack, from obedience. In the matron, Maya monitored the collapsing grids with eerie serenity. They're folding faster than forecasted. Evelyn nodded. They always do when fear kicks in. Systems built on dominance don't know how to bend. They snap. The AI voice, composed from 1,000 Earth accents, spoke gently into the bridge. Final phase authorization required. Evelyn pressed her thumb to the panel. By the doctrine of Earth, she said, voice barely above a whisper, initiate the reckoning. Space wept. A sphere of dark matter blossomed from the matron's underside, controlled, stable, but unnatural. It moved not like light, but like sorrow. Every ship that had once hovered above Earth began to sink, not destroyed, just erased. No noise, no wreckage, only memory. Zorthan R.A. screamed into his transmitter. Why? We gave you a seat at the table. Evelyn stared into the camera. You built a table on our bones, then acted surprised when we brought knives. The matron drifted forward. Below, council ships broke formation. Some tried to flee. Those who escaped found their stars changed. Wormholes collapsed. Gates refused activation. Across 5 systems, Earth-controlled relays ran new commands. Planets darkened. Cities fell silent. Not conquered. Turned off. Evelyn watched it unfold, not with joy, but with a deep ache of inevitability. You wanted a warning, she said quietly. We gave you centuries. Maya touched her shoulder. We have movement. One council fleet refuses to stand down. Send them flowers, Evelyn replied. Excuse me. Scattered nanoflowers on their hull. Let them wonder what it means. A pause. Then Maya smiled faintly. Yes, ma'am. As nanobots disguised as pollen particles drifted toward the incoming ships, Zorthan R.A. sent one final hail. You are monsters. Evelyn's brow lifted just slightly. No, sweetheart. We're gardeners. You just trampled our soil. Zorthan R.A. bared his teeth. You were just women. Mothers. Teachers. Bakers. And we still are, Evelyn said, turning away from the feed. Behind her, a wall lit up. Names. Faces. Thousands of them. All women lost in the initial sterilization strike. All smiling. All remembered. Evelyn stood before them, removed her coat, and knelt. To those you took, she said softly, we offer vengeance dressed in mercy. May the stars forget your names. Across the bridge, a quiet wave of breath passed through the crew. Not a cheer, not a cry, just reverence. In the council chamber, as systems collapsed around them, Galactic rose from his seat for the last time. He walked through the panic, past fallen aides, disconnected terminals, flickering lights. He made his way outside, onto the marble terrace overlooking the Capitol skyline. Above him, the matron filled the sky. He removed his medals, laid them gently on the rail, and whispered, I warned them. Evelyn stood still as the final countdown ticked. On screen, a child's voice began humming. You are my sunshine. Zorthan R.A.'s command feed dissolved. And so did the Grand Chamber. In its place, wildflowers, code-seated, blooming where arrogance once stood. The matron disengaged. Her mission complete. Not annihilation. Correction. A doctrine fulfilled. In the dark quiet after, Evelyn sat with Maya on the observation deck, watching stars reappear like fireflies over a prairie. It's over, Maya asked. Evelyn tilted her head. Over for them. Maya sipped coffee. And for us. Evelyn looked at the stars. We'll rest. We'll plant. We'll teach our daughters to smile soft and carry thunder. Below Earth slept. And above, a new future began writing itself in silence. Across the systems, those who had watched, judged, and dismissed Earth would whisper the same thing for generations. They asked politely. Then the final transmission arrived. One last signal from Earth. An old woman, wrinkled, barefoot on a wooden porch. She looked into the camera, eyes steady. My name's Alma. They killed my granddaughter in the first strike. She was 5. She smiled. But now I've got peace. A pause. Oh, and sugar? If y'all ever think about coming back. She leaned in. Just remember, we don't bake twice. The feed cut. The galaxy held its breath. And Earth, battered and grieving, began to sing. Not of victory, but of memory. Of names carved in bark and sky. Of warnings given gently. Of women who waited. And gardens grown in ash.